The gallery was full of congratulations and champagne flutes, catching the light from crystal chandeliers. 200 guests in designer clothes wandered through the Manhattan art space, admiring the paintings on stark white walls. I stood near the back, holding a glass of wine I hadn't sipped, watching my younger sister Vanessa accept praise for artwork that looked remarkably similar to pieces I'd created over the past 2 years. "Your use of colour is revolutionary," a critic from the Times said to Vanessa, gesturing at a canvas that depicted fractured identity through layered portraits. "The way you capture psychological fragmentation, it's unlike anything I've seen." I had painted that exact concept 6 months ago. The file was still on my laptop, watermarked with my name and dated timestamps. But here it hung on a gallery wall with Vanessa's signature in the corner. "Thank you," Vanessa said, her smile bright and confident. She wore a black dress I recognized from my closet, the vintage Chanel our grandmother had left to me. "I've been exploring themes of duality and hidden selves, how we present one face to the world while concealing another." The irony was so perfect, it almost made me laugh. My fiancé Daniel stood beside me, oblivious to the tension thrumming through my body. "Your sister is really talented," he said. I had no idea she was such a serious artist. "Neither did I said, my voice carefully neutral. Because Vanessa wasn't an artist. She was a thief, and not just of artwork. A man in an expensive suit approached Vanessa with a business card. "I'm Julian Cross from Cross Gallery in London. I'd love to discuss representation. Your work has exactly the kind of authentic vulnerability we're looking for." Authentic vulnerability. I had bled that vulnerability onto canvas during the worst year of my life, when Daniel and I had nearly broken up, when I'd questioned everything about my identity and purpose. Those paintings had been therapy, catharsis, truth, and now they were Vanessa's ticket to art world success. "I'd be honoured," Vanessa said to Julian, accepting his card with a gracious smile that I'd seen her practice in mirrors since we were children. My phone buzzed in my clutch. A text from my lawyer, Gabriella. "Everything is ready. The documentation is airtight. Your move." I looked at Vanessa across the crowded gallery, watched her laugh at something Julian said, watched her bask in praise for work she hadn't created, for a talent she didn't possess. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She thought I'd been too distracted, too trusting, too naive to notice. She had no idea I'd known for 3 months, that I'd been documenting every theft, every lie, every use of my identity and my work. "Some people wear masks to hide who they really are," I said quietly to Daniel. "Others wear someone else's entire face." He looked at me confused. "What?" "Nothing," I said, setting down my untouched wine. "I just realised something important. What I'd realised was this. Vanessa had stolen my art, my identity, my credit cards, and nearly my entire life. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me, and now she was going to discover exactly how much that mistake would cost her." 3 months earlier, I had been having lunch with Daniel at our favourite bistro in Soho, when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Natalie Pierce?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, speaking. This is Amanda from Chase Fraud Prevention. We've detected some unusual activity on your account ending in 7342. Several large purchases in Los Angeles over the past 2 weeks. Are you currently in California?" My heart had skipped. "No, I'm in New York. What kind of purchases?" "Let me see. Luxury hotels, designer clothing stores, art supplies from a specialty shop. Total of about $18,000. We flagged it because the spending pattern is unusual for your account." "I didn't make any of those purchases," I'd said, my mind already racing. "Someone is using my card fraudulently. We'll cancel the card immediately and open an investigation. We'll need you to come in and sign some documents. In the meantime, can you think of anyone who might have access to your card information?" I could. But I didn't want to believe it yet. After hanging up, I'd gone home to our apartment, the one I shared with Daniel in the West Village, and started checking. My credit card had been in my wallet where it belonged. But when I checked my desk drawer where I kept backup cards and important documents, I found things subtly out of place. My passport was there, but slightly askew from how I always left it. My social security card was in the wrong sleeve of my document holder, and when I logged into my email from my laptop, I found a suspicious login from Los Angeles 3 weeks earlier. Someone had accessed my email from California. Someone who knew my passwords. I'd sat at my desk for a long time, my hands shaking, running through the possibilities. Daniel had been with me in New York the entire time, so it wasn't him. I'd had no visitors to the apartment. No one else had keys except Vanessa, my younger sister who I'd given emergency keys to 2 years ago when she moved to the city. Vanessa who had asked to borrow my laptop just once when hers crashed. Vanessa who had always been envious of my art career, my relationship, my life. But I couldn't jump to conclusions. Not yet. I'd called Daniel's tech-savvy cousin Mason who did private security work. I think someone accessed my email and might have stolen my credit card information. Can you help me figure out who? Mason had come over that evening with his laptop and various pieces of equipment I didn't understand. He'd spent 2 hours analysing my computer, my email security, my cloud storage. You've been hacked, he'd said finally, but not by a stranger. This was someone with physical access to your laptop. They installed keylogging software about 6 weeks ago. Everything you've typed since then, passwords, emails, documents, has been recorded and sent to an external server. Can you trace where it was sent? I can try. Give me a few days. 3 days later, Mason had called with information that confirmed my worst fears. The keylogger was sending data to an email address registered to someone named Vanessa Pierce. Same last name as you. Any relation? My sister, I'd whispered. I'm sorry, Natalie. But there's more. I accessed the cloud storage she's been using. Not legal, so this can't be used in court, but you should know. She's been downloading your art files, your personal photos, copies of your documents. She's basically been stealing your digital identity. I'd felt sick. For how long? At least 6 weeks, based on the keylogger. But some of the files she downloaded are older, which means she's been accessing your accounts longer than that. Do you use the same passwords for everything? I used to, I'd admitted. I changed them last month because I was worried about security. Well, by then she'd already gotten in. Natalie, this is serious. This isn't just credit card fraud. She's committed identity theft. After Mason left, I'd sat alone in the apartment. Daniel was out of town for work, and let myself feel the full weight of betrayal. My sister, my only sibling, the person I'd protected and supported and loved, had been systematically stealing my identity. The question was why? And more importantly, what was I going to do about it? The next day, I'd called Gabriela Torres, a lawyer I'd met at an art gallery opening 2 years ago. She specialized in intellectual property and fraud cases. Gabriela, I need legal advice. My sister has been stealing my identity, credit cards, documents, artwork. What are my options? Gabriela had been quiet for a moment. That's complicated because she's family. What exactly has she taken? I'd explained everything Mason had found. The keylogger, the downloaded files, the credit card fraud, the artwork theft. You need to document everything, Gabriela had said. Don't confront her yet. If you do, she'll delete evidence and lawyer up. What we need is an airtight case. Can you get me copies of your original artwork files with timestamps? Your credit card statements? Any proof that she's been using your identity? Yes to all of that. Good. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to keep living your normal life while quietly gathering evidence. I'll start building a case. When we're ready, we'll hit her with everything at once. Civil suit for damages, criminal charges for identity theft and fraud, copyright infringement for the artwork. We'll make it impossible for her to wiggle out. How long will that take? 2 to 3 months if we're thorough. Can you hold out that long without tipping her off? I'd thought about it. 2 to 3 months of pretending everything was normal. 2 to 3 months of family dinners and sisterly small talk while knowing she was stealing from me. Yes, I'd said. I can do that. But Gabriela, I want more than just legal consequences. I want everyone who matters to know what she did. I want her art world dreams destroyed the way she tried to destroy my work. We can do that, Gabriela had said. But you have to be smart about it. Revenge is most satisfying when it's legally bulletproof. So I'd started documenting everything. I'd downloaded all my original artwork files onto an external hard drive, noting creation dates and edit histories. I'd gathered bank statements showing the fraudulent charges. I'd changed all my passwords to things Vanessa couldn't guess, but I'd kept the keylogger active so Mason could monitor what she was accessing. And I'd waited, watching, learning, understanding the full scope of her betrayal. A week into my investigation, I'd discovered something even worse. Vanessa hadn't just stolen my art and my credit cards. She'd been impersonating me online. She'd created a fake social media account using my photos and my name. Natalie Pierce, artist. But she'd populated it with her own artwork and had been building an online following. She'd been sending emails to galleries and art dealers, pretending to be me, submitting portfolios that mixed my real work with her inferior copies. Some galleries had responded positively. One had even offered her, or rather me, a group show opportunity in Los Angeles, which explained the California trip and the fraud charges. "She's been using your reputation to launch her own career," Mason had said when I showed him what I'd found. "This is next-level identity theft." Why would she do this? I'd asked, though part of me already knew. Jealousy? Laziness? Maybe she thinks she deserves your success. People justify all kinds of things to themselves. I'd thought about my relationship with Vanessa. We'd always been different. I was the responsible one, the achiever, the daughter our parents bragged about. Vanessa was the free spirit, the one who drifted between jobs and hobbies and cities, never quite settling on anything. But I'd never thought she resented me. Or if I had suspected, I'd never imagined it would lead to this. 2 weeks into my investigation, Daniel had noticed something was off. "You've been quiet lately," he'd said one evening. We were making dinner together in our small but perfectly organized kitchen. "Is everything okay?" I'd wanted to tell him. But Daniel loved Vanessa. He thought of her as the fun, creative younger sister. She always made him laugh at family dinners, always complimented his work, always played the role of the supportive family member. He wouldn't believe me. Not without proof. "Just stressed about work," I'd said. "The gallery is pushing me to finish the new series and I'm struggling with inspiration." It wasn't entirely a lie. I had been struggling because every time I tried to create, I thought about Vanessa stealing my work and passing it off as her own. "Maybe you should take a break," Daniel had suggested. "We could go upstate for the weekend, just disconnect." "Maybe," I'd said, though I knew I couldn't disconnect. Not until I understood the full extent of Vanessa's betrayal. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I'd gone through my files systematically comparing dates. Vanessa had accessed my cloud storage 37 times over the past 2 months. She'd downloaded 23 of my artwork files, 12 personal photos, and copies of my driver's license and social security card. With those documents, she could open credit cards in my name, apply for loans, even commit crimes while using my identity. The realization had hit me like cold water. This wasn't just about stolen art or credit card fraud. Vanessa was trying to become me, to take over my life, my reputation, my identity. And she'd been doing it so carefully, so systematically that I almost hadn't noticed until the bank called about the California charges. I'd made a list that night of everything I knew she'd stolen or accessed. 1. Credit cards. 3 different cards, approximately $35,000 in fraudulent charges. 2. Artwork files. 23 pieces including my entire recent series. 3. Identity documents. Copies of license, SSN, passport. 4. Personal photos, used to create fake social media accounts. 5. Email access, reading my correspondence with galleries and dealers. 6. Gallery contacts, reaching out to them while impersonating me. The list made me feel physically sick, but it also made me angry. Not the hot, impulsive anger that leads to mistakes. The cold, calculating anger that leads to perfect revenge. I'd called Gabriella the next morning. "I have everything documented. What's our next move? Keep gathering evidence. I want at least 3 months of documented theft before we go public. In the meantime, I'm going to file preliminary paperwork for a restraining order and a civil suit. But we won't serve her until we're ready to go public with everything. When will that be?" I'm thinking we should time it with something public, something that will maximize the embarrassment and the consequences. Does she have any big events coming up? Gallery shows? Anything where she'll be using your stolen work publicly? I'd thought about it. Then I'd remembered. Vanessa had mentioned she was trying to get a gallery show. She'd been suspiciously vague about the details, but now I understood why. Let me find out, I'd said. That evening, I'd casually asked Vanessa over the phone. How's your art going? You mentioned you were working on some new pieces. It's going great, actually, she'd said, and I could hear the excitement in her voice. I have a gallery show next month. It's a small space in Chelsea, but it's a start. That's wonderful, I'd said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. When is it? I'd love to come support you. Really? That would mean so much. It's on the 15th. I'll send you the details. After we hung up, I'd immediately called Gabriella. She has a gallery show scheduled for next month. She's going to be displaying my stolen artwork publicly. Perfect, Gabriella had said. We'll let her have her show. Let her invite everyone. Let her bask in the attention. And then, at the height of her moment of glory, we'll reveal that everything is stolen. The embarrassment will be catastrophic. What about criminal charges? We'll file those the same day. But Natalie, I need to warn you. Going after family like this, it's going to destroy your relationship permanently. Are you prepared for that? I'd thought about it. About childhood memories of Vanessa and me playing in our grandmother's attic, dressing up in vintage clothes and pretending to be famous artists. About high school, when I'd helped her with her college applications. About all the times I'd lent her money, given her advice, supported her dreams. And then I thought about her stealing my identity, my work, my life. Yes, I'd said, I'm prepared. The hardest part of those 3 months was pretending everything was normal. Going to family dinners where Vanessa sat across from me, chatting about her artwork and her creative process. Smiling when our mother praised her for finally finding her passion. Keeping silent when our father said, maybe Vanessa will be as successful as Natalie someday. If only he knew Vanessa was trying to be exactly as successful as me by literally stealing my success. But I'd kept quiet, kept documenting, kept building the case. Mason had helped me set up monitoring software that tracked every time Vanessa accessed my old accounts. The ones I'd kept open specifically as bait. I'd even uploaded fake artwork to my cloud storage, pieces that looked finished, but were actually incomplete or flawed, just to see if she'd take them. She took them all. Daniel had grown increasingly concerned about my mood. You seem different, he'd said one night. Distant. Like you're keeping secrets. I'm not keeping secrets, I'd lied. I'm just focused on work. It wasn't entirely untrue. I was focused on work, the work of destroying my sister's fraudulent career and reclaiming my stolen identity. About 6 weeks into the 3-month plan, I'd made a discovery that explained so much. I'd been going through old emails, ones from before Vanessa installed the keylogger, and found a thread between Vanessa and someone named Troy Matheson. Troy was apparently Vanessa's boyfriend, someone she'd never mentioned to family. And in their emails, they discussed their plan in detail. Once I established myself using Natalie's work, we can transition to my own style. Gradually, Vanessa had written. No one will notice because by then I'll have the reputation and connections. Nat gets so much attention and she doesn't even appreciate it. She has everything handed to her, the talent, the fiancé, the apartment, the family approval. Why shouldn't I have some of that? Troy's response, just be careful. If she figures out what you're doing before you're established, you'll lose everything. Maybe you should slow down, not take so much at once. Vanessa's reply, she won't figure it out. Natalie is so trusting, so naive. She thinks everyone is as honest as she is. By the time she realizes anything is wrong, I'll be successful enough that it won't matter. I'll say she's just jealous, that she can't stand seeing me succeed. People will believe me. The struggling younger sister finally making it versus the successful older sister who can't handle competition. Reading those emails, I'd felt something inside me turn to ice. This wasn't impulsive theft. This was calculated, premeditated, malicious. Vanessa hadn't just stolen from me, she'd planned to frame me as the villain if I ever discovered the truth. I'd forwarded the emails to Gabriella immediately. "This changes things," she'd said when she called me. "This shows intent and premeditation. The criminal charges will stick much harder with this evidence." "Good," I'd said, and I'd meant it. As the gallery show approached, Vanessa had become insufferable. She'd posted constantly on social media about her artistic journey and her breakthrough body of work. She'd given interviews to small art blogs talking about her vision and her unique perspective. All of it was based on my stolen work. I'd attended one of her pre-show talks at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, sitting in the back where she couldn't see me clearly. She'd stood in front of a group of 20 people and explained the meaning behind pieces I'd created. "This one," she'd said, gesturing to a projection of my painting Fractured Self, "explores the duality of human nature. How we present a polished exterior while hiding our broken interior. The fragmented faces represent the many masks we wear." That painting had been about my struggle with depression after my grandmother died. The fractured faces were literal. I'd used photos of myself from different life stages, torn them apart, and reassembled them to show how trauma fragments identity. But Vanessa didn't know that. She couldn't know that because she hadn't created it. She was making up meaning that sounded deep, but was completely disconnected from the actual emotional truth of the work. One person in the audience had raised their hand. "Your technique is really distinctive. How did you develop that layering style?" Vanessa hadn't missed a beat. It evolved over years of experimentation. "I've always been drawn to collage and mixed media, and eventually I found this method that felt authentic to my voice." She was so convincing, so confident. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her too. After the talk, I'd approached her. She'd seemed genuinely happy to see me. "Nat, you came. What did you think?" "Very interesting," I'd said, keeping my voice neutral. "You've really found your voice." "Thank you. That means so much coming from you. You've always been such an inspiration." The shamelessness was breathtaking. She could look me in the eye, praise me as her inspiration, while actively stealing my work and identity. "I'm proud of you," I'd said, and watched her face light up. "You've worked so hard for this." "I have," she'd agreed. "It hasn't been easy, but I'm finally getting recognition for my art. My recognition." But I just smiled and hugged her goodbye. 2 weeks before the show, Gabriella had called with an update. "Everything is ready. I've drafted the lawsuit, prepared the criminal complaint, compiled all the evidence. We have original file timestamps, credit card statements, the emails with Troy, testimony from Mason about the keylogger. Everything we need. What happens at the show? You attend, like a supportive sister. Let her have her moment. Let everyone see the work, praise it, talk about how talented she is. Then, the morning after the show, we serve her with everything at once. The lawsuit, the criminal complaint, the cease and desist. We also contact every gallery and dealer she's approached, inform them that the work is stolen and provide proof. The art world will blacklist her, immediately and permanently. No gallery will touch her after this. Her reputation will be destroyed. And the criminal charges? Identity theft, credit card fraud, copyright infringement. She's looking at potential jail time if convicted, though more likely she'll plead out to probation and restitution. But either way, she'll have a criminal record. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt conflicted about destroying my sister's life so completely. But all I felt was cold satisfaction. The night before the gallery show, I'd had dinner with my parents. Just the three of us. Daniel was travelling for work and Vanessa was too busy preparing to join. My mother had been bubbling with excitement. "I can't believe Vanessa is having a real gallery show. Your father and I always knew she was talented, but to see her actually pursuing it seriously." "It's wonderful," I'd agreed, cutting my chicken with precise movements. "Of course, we're proud of both our daughters," my father had added quickly, noticing my expression. "You've always been the successful one, Natalie. It's nice to see Vanessa finding her path too." "I'm happy for her," I'd said. And in a twisted way I was. happy that she'd climbed so high on her tower of lies because it meant she had much further to fall. "Will Daniel be there tomorrow?" my mother had asked. "He's flying back in the morning. He wouldn't miss it." "Such a good man," my mother had said. "You're lucky to have found him." I was lucky. Daniel was kind, supportive, honest. Everything Vanessa wasn't. Which made me wonder, what would he think when he learned the truth about my sister? Would he understand why I'd kept it from him? Would he forgive me for the deception, for keeping such a massive secret for 3 months? I'd find out soon enough. After dinner, driving home alone, I'd felt the weight of what I was about to do. Tomorrow, I would go to Vanessa's show. I would smile and congratulate her. I would let her believe she'd gotten away with it. And then, the next morning, I would destroy her. My phone had rung as I pulled into my parking garage. "Gabriella, last chance to back out," she'd said. "Once we do this, there's no undoing it." "I'm not backing out." "Okay, then here's the plan for tomorrow. You attend the show. Be supportive, be kind, be the good sister. Take photos because we'll want documentation that she was publicly claiming this work as her own. After the show, go home. Rest." At 9 a.m. the following morning, a courier will serve her with the lawsuit and criminal complaint. Simultaneously, I'll send emails to every gallery, dealer and blog that's covered her work, explaining that it's stolen and providing proof. "What about my parents?" Gabriella had been quiet for a moment. "That's up to you. You can tell them beforehand or let them find out with everyone else." I'd thought about it. "I'll tell them after the show. After she's been served. They'll be angry either way, but at least this way they'll have seen the evidence." "Fair enough." "Natalie, I have to ask one more time. Are you absolutely certain about this? Destroying family relationships like this, it's not something you can come back from." "She destroyed our relationship when she started stealing my identity," I'd said. "I'm just making the consequences public." That night, I'd barely slept. I'd lain awake in bed next to Daniel, who'd come home late from the airport thinking about what tomorrow would bring. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh, too vindictive. But then I'd thought about Vanessa's emails to Troy, about her plan to paint me as jealous and bitter if I discovered the theft, about how she'd looked me in the eye and called me her inspiration while stealing my work. No, I wasn't being too harsh. If anything, I was being merciful. The gallery had been packed when Daniel and I arrived. Vanessa had clearly promoted the show well, or rather she'd promoted it using the contacts and reputation she'd stolen from me. The space was small but elegant. White walls and track lighting, the kind of place emerging artists dreamed about. And on those walls hung 20 pieces of artwork, 17 of which I'd created. Daniel had squeezed my hand as we walked in. "This is exciting. Your sister really pulled this off." I'd squeezed back, unable to speak. Vanessa had spotted us immediately and rushed over, radiant in a black dress. My black dress, I'd realised. Another thing she'd stolen from my closet. "You came," she'd exclaimed, hugging me. "And Daniel, thank you both so much for being here." "We wouldn't miss it," Daniel had said warmly. "Congratulations, Vanessa. This is incredible." "Thank you," she'd beamed. "It's been such a journey. Natalie, I hope you don't mind that some of my work has a similar aesthetic to yours. You know what they say. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery." The audacity was stunning. She was acknowledging the similarity while framing it as homage rather than theft. "I'm flattered," I'd said, my voice carefully neutral. We'd walked through the gallery together, Vanessa pointing out different pieces and explaining her inspiration for each one. With every explanation, I'd had to bite my tongue to keep from screaming the truth. That painting, shattered identity, I'd created it after a panic attack about losing myself in my relationship with Daniel. The broken mirror shards reflected different versions of a woman's face, representing the fear of being consumed by someone else's expectations. But Vanessa explained it as being about the fragmentation of modern life and the pressure of social media. She didn't understand the work because she hadn't lived the emotions that created it. Julian Cross, the gallery owner from London I'd seen at the show, had been there. He'd approached Vanessa with praise and business cards, just as I'd seen before. Your work is extraordinary, he'd said. I'd love to discuss bringing some pieces to London for a show at my gallery. That would be amazing, Vanessa had gushed. I'd stood there smiling while my sister negotiated deals based on my stolen artwork, while she accepted praise and opportunities that should have been mine. And I'd documented everything. Photos of the art on the walls, photos of Vanessa accepting congratulations, video of her explaining pieces she didn't create. Evidence. Midway through the show, my parents had arrived. My mother had immediately started crying with pride, and my father had looked uncharacteristically emotional. "Sweetheart, this is wonderful," my mother had said, hugging Vanessa. "We're so proud of you." "Thank you, Mom," Vanessa had said. "I couldn't have done it without the family's support. My family's support. My parents' encouragement of my art career, which Vanessa had watched and absorbed and now claimed for herself. I'd stood slightly apart, watching them celebrate her, feeling like a ghost in my own life. This should have been my show, my triumph, my parents' tears of pride. Instead, I was the spectator, the supporting character, the older sister smiling bravely while her younger sibling stole her spotlight. "Natalie, what do you think?" my father had asked, drawing me into the conversation. "You're the art expert in the family. What's your professional opinion of Vanessa's work?" Everyone had turned to look at me. Vanessa's expression had been anxious, probably worried I'd somehow reveal the truth. "It's very well executed," I'd said carefully. "The technique is quite sophisticated, almost professional level." "That's high praise coming from you," my father had said, pleased. "I think some of these pieces could hang in any major gallery," I'd added. "They're that good." It wasn't a lie. They were good because I'd created them. Every brushstroke, every colour choice, every compositional decision was mine. Vanessa had looked relieved, mistaking my words for approval rather than the veiled truth they actually were. As the evening wore on, I'd watched her network, watched her collect business cards and Instagram follows, watched her build relationships with people who thought she was a talented, emerging artist. Tomorrow all of that would come crashing down. Around 9 p.m, Daniel and I had said our goodbyes. Vanessa had hugged me tightly. "Thank you for being here," she'd whispered. "I know we're not always super close, but your support means everything to me." "That's what sisters are for," I'd said. I'd felt Daniel squeeze my hand as we left. In the car, he'd said, "That was nice of you, being so supportive. I know it can't be easy watching your younger sister succeed in the same field." "It's fine," I'd said. "Everyone deserves their moment." He'd looked at me oddly but hadn't pushed. At home, I'd poured myself a large glass of wine and sat on the couch staring at the photos from the show on my phone. Evidence of Vanessa's theft, proof of her lies. My phone had buzzed with a text from Gabriella. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Everything is ready. "Are you?" I'd typed back. "Yes." Then I'd finished my wine and gone to bed, sleeping better than I had in 3 months. Tomorrow, justice would be served. Tomorrow, Vanessa would discover that some people's faces should never be worn by someone else. Tomorrow, she would learn exactly what it meant to steal someone's identity. At exactly 9 a.m, Gabriella had texted, "Courier is at her door." I'd been sitting at my kitchen table, coffee untouched, phone in hand. Daniel was in the shower, unaware of what was unfolding. 3 minutes later, my phone had rung. Vanessa. I'd let it go to voicemail. She'd called again immediately. Again, I didn't answer. Then a text. "Natalie, call me now." Something terrible is happening. I'd waited 5 more minutes before calling back. "Vanessa, what's wrong?" "Someone served me with legal papers." Her voice had been panicked, crying. "They're saying I committed identity theft and fraud. They're saying I stole your artwork. Natalie, this is insane. Someone is trying to frame me." "What are you talking about? The papers say you filed a lawsuit against me. But that's crazy, right? You wouldn't do that without talking to me first. Someone must have stolen your identity to file false charges against me." The irony would have been funny if it weren't so tragic. "Vanessa, I need you to calm down and tell me exactly what the papers say." "They say," she'd paused, clearly reading, "that I unlawfully accessed your computer and email accounts, stole credit card information, downloaded artwork files without permission, and created fake social media accounts using your identity. They say I displayed stolen artwork at a gallery show. Natalie, none of this is true, isn't it? The silence on the other end had stretched for several seconds. What? She'd finally said, her voice small. I asked if it's true. Did you access my computer? Did you download my artwork files? Did you use my credit cards in California? Natalie, I don't know what you're talking about. I've known for 3 months, Vanessa. I've been documenting everything. Every file you downloaded. Every time you accessed my email. Every fraudulent charge. I have the keylogger you installed. I have the emails between you and Troy about your plan. I have everything. You knew. I knew. And I let you have your gallery show. I let you invite everyone, let you accept praise for my work, let you build relationships with galleries and dealers. And now I'm watching it all come crashing down. But you're my sister, and you stole my identity. You stole my work. You tried to steal my entire life. She'd started crying then, real ugly crying. Please, Natalie, please don't do this. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll take down the show, I'll admit everything, just please drop the charges. I'll lose everything. My reputation, my future, everything. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. I was desperate, I was jealous. I made a terrible mistake for 3 months. I'd ask coldly. You made a terrible mistake for 3 consecutive months. That's not a mistake, Vanessa. That's a choice. A series of choices. What do you want? Please tell me what you want and I'll do it. I want you to face the consequences of your actions. I want everyone who praised your talent last night to know it wasn't talent. It was theft. I want the art world to know you're a fraud. I want you to understand that you can't steal someone's life without paying for it. You're destroying me, she'd whispered. No, I'd said. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. I'd hung up before she could respond. By 10 a.m., my email inbox had exploded. Galleries rescinding offers, dealers expressing shock and disappointment, journalists asking for comment on the Vanessa Pierce art fraud scandal. Gabriella's emails had done their job. Every person Vanessa had contacted in the art world now knew she was a thief. At 11 a.m., my parents had called, both of them, on speakerphone, their voices tight with anger and confusion. Natalie, what is happening? My mother had demanded. Vanessa just called us hysterical, saying you filed criminal charges against her. Please tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, I'd said calmly. Vanessa has been stealing my identity for months. She stole my artwork, my credit card information, my documents. Everything she showed at that gallery last night, I created it. She stole the files from my computer and claimed them as her own. That's impossible, my father had said. Vanessa wouldn't do that. I have proof. Timestamps on my original files, documentation of her accessing my computer, credit card statements showing fraudulent charges she made, emails where she and her boyfriend discussed stealing my work. I have everything. Why didn't you come to us? My mother had asked, her voice breaking. Why did you go straight to lawyers and police? Because I needed to protect myself. Because if I'd confronted her privately, she would have deleted evidence and denied everything. Because she didn't just steal artwork, she stole my identity. She could have destroyed my credit, my reputation, my life. She's your sister, my father had said. Family handles things privately. She stopped being my sister when she decided to steal my life, I'd replied. Would you be saying this if she'd robbed a stranger? Or is identity theft only acceptable when it's against family? Neither of them had answered. I'm sending you the evidence, I'd continued. All of it. Look at it. Really look at it. Then tell me I was wrong to protect myself. I'd hung up and immediately emailed them the complete documentation package Gabriella had prepared. Timestamps, credit card statements, emails, everything. Let them see exactly what their precious Vanessa had done. Daniel had emerged from his home office around noon, where he'd been on conference calls. Hey, has Vanessa texted you? She sent me this weird message about legal problems. We need to talk, I'd said. I'd told him everything. He'd listened in stunned silence, his expression shifting from confusion to shock to anger. 3 months, he'd said when I finished. You knew for 3 months and didn't tell me? I couldn't. I needed to build the case first. I praised her work last night. I congratulated her. I told her she was talented. And the whole time, it was your work she was showing? Yes. He'd run his hands through his hair, a gesture he made when stressed. I don't even know what to say. Your own sister. I know. Are you okay? The question had surprised me. In all the preparation, all the planning, I hadn't really thought about how I felt. I don't know, I'd admitted. Ask me when this is over. That afternoon, the story had hit social media. Art bloggers picked it up first, then larger media outlets. Gallery show exposed as fraud. Artist stole sister's work, read one headline. Identity theft in the art world. Vanessa Pierce scandal read another. My phone had rung constantly. Journalists wanting interviews, old friends reaching out, even some of Vanessa's friends calling to either defend her or express shock. I'd ignored most of them. The evidence spoke for itself. I didn't need to give interviews or explain myself. By evening, Vanessa had deleted all her social media accounts. The gallery had taken down her show and issued an apology. Julian Cross had released a statement saying he was horrified and disappointed and would be conducting thorough verification procedures for all future artists. Vanessa's art career was over before it had really begun. The criminal investigation had moved quickly. The prosecutor's office had been interested in the case because identity theft was a growing problem and they wanted to make an example. Within a week, Vanessa had been formally charged with identity theft, credit card fraud, and copyright infringement. Her lawyer had immediately tried to negotiate a plea deal. She wants to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for probation and restitution, Gabriella had told me. No jail time. What do you think I should do? That's entirely up to you. You're the victim here. The prosecutor will follow your recommendation. I'd thought about it. Part of me wanted to see Vanessa face the maximum consequences. But another part, the part that remembered us as children playing in our grandmother's attic, felt exhausted by the whole thing. What would the restitution look like? She'd have to pay back every dollar she stole plus penalties. Probably around $60,000 total. She'd have to do community service, attend therapy, and she'd have a criminal record. It would follow her for life. Show up on background checks, affect her employment options, haunt her future. But no jail time. No jail time. Though honestly, Natalie, I think the public humiliation has already punished her more than jail would. Her name is permanently associated with fraud. She'll never work in the art world again. Her reputation is destroyed. Let her take the plea deal, I'd decided. I want restitution and I want the criminal record. But I don't need to see her in jail. Gabriella had nodded approvingly. That's mature. I'll let the prosecutor know. The plea deal had been finalised 2 weeks after the show. Vanessa had stood in court and formally admitted to identity theft and fraud. She'd been sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory therapy, and restitution of $62,000 to me. I'd attended the hearing sitting in the back of the courtroom. Vanessa had glanced at me once, her face pale and drawn, then looked away quickly. She'd lost weight. Her hair, usually perfectly styled, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore a simple dress I didn't recognise, probably one of the few things in her closet that wasn't stolen from me. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, Vanessa had spoken quietly into the microphone. I'm deeply ashamed of what I did. I betrayed my sister's trust and stole from her because I was jealous and selfish. I wanted the success she had, but I wasn't willing to do the work to earn it myself. I'm sorry for the harm I caused, and I accept full responsibility for my actions. It was a good apology, probably written by her lawyer, but it didn't change anything. After the hearing, my parents had approached me in the courthouse hallway. They looked tired, older than I remembered. Are you satisfied? My father had asked. Not accusatory, just defeated. I'm relieved it's over, I'd said. Your sister's life is ruined, my mother had said. She can't get a job, she's drowning in debt. She's lost all her friends. Was this really necessary? She stole my identity, I'd reminded them. She could have destroyed my credit, my career, my reputation. What would you have had me do? Just forgive and forget? She's family, my mother had said, as if that explained everything. Family doesn't steal from family, I'd replied. But she did. And now she's facing consequences. That's how the world works. My father had looked like he wanted to argue, but my mother had put her hand on his arm. Let's go, she'd said quietly. I'd watched them leave, feeling a mix of vindication and sadness. I'd won, but the victory had cost me my family. In the months following the trial, I'd tried to rebuild my life. Daniel and I had grown closer through the ordeal. He'd been supportive once he understood the full scope of Vanessa's betrayal. I can't believe I praised her work, he'd said more than once. I feel so stupid. You didn't know. She fooled everyone. My art career had actually benefited from the publicity. The scandal had brought attention to my work, and several galleries had reached out with legitimate opportunities. I'd landed a solo show at a prestigious gallery in Chelsea and had sold several pieces to serious collectors. The irony wasn't lost on me. Vanessa's attempt to steal my success had actually amplified it. But the family situation remained fractured. My parents spoke to me only when necessary, their tone always slightly cold, as if I was the one who had committed the wrong. They saw Vanessa as the victim, of her own poor judgment perhaps, but also of my harsh reaction. You could have handled this privately, my mother had said during one stiff phone call. Did you really need to press criminal charges? Yes, I'd said simply. I did. Vanessa had sent me one letter about 2 months after the trial. It arrived in a plain envelope with no return address. Natalie, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I don't blame you, but I needed to write this even if you throw it away without reading it. I'm not going to make excuses. What I did was unforgivable. I stole from you, betrayed your trust, and tried to steal your identity and your life's work. I told myself it was because I was desperate, because I was jealous, because you had everything I wanted. But those are just excuses, not reasons. The truth is that I've always felt like I was living in your shadow. You were the talented one, the successful one, the daughter Mom and Dad bragged about. I was the screw-up, the disappointment, the one who couldn't quite get her life together. And instead of working to build my own success, I took the shortcut of stealing yours. I know I hurt you in ways that can't be undone. I know you'll never trust me again, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. I'm in therapy, working on my jealousy and my sense of entitlement. I got a regular job. Nothing glamorous, just retail. And I'm slowly paying back the restitution. I'm not the person I was when I stole from you. That person was selfish and cruel and weak. I'm trying to be stronger now, even though it's hard and humiliating and I have to face what I've done every single day. I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't expect anything from you anymore. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry and that I'm working on becoming someone who would never do what I did to you. I hope you're well. I hope Daniel treats you the way you deserve. I hope your art career continues to thrive. You deserve all the success in the world, and I'm sorry I ever tried to steal it. Your sister, though I know I don't deserve to call myself that anymore. Vanessa, I'd read the letter 3 times. Part of me wanted to believe she was sincere. Part of me thought it was just another manipulation. I'd shown it to Daniel. What do you think? I think she's probably sincere, he'd said. But that doesn't mean you have to forgive her or have her back in your life. Some betrayals are too big to come back from. Do you think I was too harsh? No, he'd said firmly. She stole your identity. She could have destroyed your life. You protected yourself the only way you could. Anyone who thinks that's too harsh doesn't understand the severity of what she did. I'd kept the letter but hadn't responded. What was there to say? A year after the scandal, I'd been featured in a major art magazine. The article had focused on my work, my technique, and my creative process, but inevitably, it had also mentioned the scandal. When your own sister stole your artwork and identity, how did that affect your creative process? The interviewer had asked. It made me more protective of my work, I'd said. But it also made me realize that what matters isn't just the art itself, it's the truth behind it. Vanessa could copy my technique, but she couldn't copy the emotional authenticity that makes the work meaningful. That's something you can't steal. The article had been well received, and I'd gotten several new commissions from it. Around the same time Daniel had proposed. We'd been walking in Central Park on a crisp autumn day, and he'd stopped by the Bethesda fountain and pulled out a ring. "I know this year has been difficult," he'd said, "but watching you handle everything with such strength and grace made me realize what an incredible person you are. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" I'd said yes, and we'd started planning a small wedding for the following spring. My parents had been invited, though I wasn't sure they would come. We'd been speaking more regularly, but the relationship was still strained. Vanessa, of course, was not invited. I hadn't seen or spoken to her since the trial. One evening, about 2 months before the wedding, my mother had called. "I wanted to talk to you about Vanessa," she'd said. "Mom, I really don't. Please, just listen. She's been working hard to turn her life around. She finished her community service, she's making payments on the restitution, she's been in therapy. She's not the same person who stole from you. I'm glad she's getting her life together. But that doesn't change what she did. I know, but she's your sister, Natalie. And I'm worried about what this estrangement is doing to our family." "She's the one who destroyed our family," I'd reminded her. "Not me." "I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just asking if you might consider at some point giving her a chance to apologize properly. Maybe have coffee, let her explain herself. You don't have to forgive her, but at least hear her out. Why? What would that accomplish? Closure, maybe. For both of you. Right now, there's all this unresolved pain and anger. Maybe if you talked, you could both move forward." I told her I'd think about it, but I hadn't been sure. What was there to say that hadn't already been said? A week later, Vanessa had reached out directly. An email, short and simple. "Natalie, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'm asking anyway. Would you be willing to meet with me? Just once for coffee so I can apologize to you properly, not through lawyers or letters, but face to face. If you say no, I'll understand and I won't bother you again. But I'm hoping you'll give me this chance. Vanessa." I'd stared at the email for a long time. Then I'd called Daniel. "What do you think I should do?" "What do you want to do?" he'd asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell. But another part thinks maybe closure would be good. Maybe if I let her apologize properly, I can finally stop thinking about all of this." "Then do it. Meet with her. But do it in a public place. And don't go alone if you don't want to. I can come with you if you want moral support. Would you?" "Of course. You're going to be my wife. Your battles are my battles." So I'd agreed. One meeting, in a coffee shop in neutral territory, with Daniel waiting nearby just in case. The coffee shop was in Midtown, far from both of our neighborhoods. I'd arrived early, wanting to be settled and composed when Vanessa showed up. Daniel had taken a table by the window, far enough away to give us privacy, but close enough to intervene if needed. Vanessa had arrived exactly on time. She looked different. Thinner, paler, with dark circles under her eyes that even makeup couldn't quite hide. She wore clothes I didn't recognize, simple and inexpensive. No designer labels, no stolen items from my closet. "Thank you for coming," she'd said, sitting down across from me. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea?" "I'm fine," she'd ordered for herself, just plain coffee black, and we'd sat in uncomfortable silence until it arrived. "I'm not going to ask you to forgive me," Vanessa had said finally. "I know that's not realistic. But I wanted the chance to apologize properly, face to face, without lawyers or parents or anyone else involved." "Okay," I'd said. "I'm listening." She'd taken a breath. "What I did was unforgivable. I stole from you, betrayed you, and tried to build my success on your work. I told myself lies about why it was okay, that you had so much already, that you wouldn't miss it, that I deserved a chance too. But they were all lies. The truth is that I was jealous of you, jealous of your talent, your relationship with Daniel, your success, Mom and Dad's pride in you. Instead of working to build my own life, I decided to steal yours, and I almost got away with it. What changed? I'd asked. Why are you apologizing now? Because the consequences you gave me, the criminal record, the public humiliation, the destroyed reputation, they forced me to face who I really was, and I didn't like what I saw. She'd wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I'm in therapy now, real therapy, not just the court-mandated stuff. And I've realized that I spent my whole life defining myself in relation to you. I was Natalie's sister, the younger one, the less talented one. I never developed my own identity because I was so focused on yours. When I stole your work, I thought I was taking what I deserved. But really, I was admitting that I had nothing of my own. No real talent, no real identity, no real value separate from you. And now, I'd asked. Now I'm working on building a real life. A boring, normal life where I work retail and save money and try to figure out who Vanessa Pierce actually is when she's not comparing herself to you. It's hard. It's humiliating. But it's honest. I'd sat with that for a moment. You hurt me, I'd said finally. Not just because you stole, but because you were my sister and I trusted you completely. I never would have suspected you because I thought we were close. We weren't close, Vanessa had said quietly. I pretended we were, but really I was always watching you, measuring myself against you, feeling inferior. That's not closeness. That's competition I invented in my own head. Do you understand why I couldn't just let it go? Why I had to press charges? Yes. Because if you'd just confronted me privately, I would have lied and manipulated and probably done it again. I needed real consequences to wake me up. We'd talked for another hour. Not about reconciliation or forgiveness, but about what had happened and why. Vanessa had explained how she'd installed the keylogger, how she'd gradually stolen my work, how she'd rationalized it to herself. I told myself you wouldn't mind sharing, she'd said, that your success was so big, a little of it wouldn't hurt you. But that was delusional. You built your career through years of work and I tried to steal it in months. As we prepared to leave, she'd said, I'm not asking to be sisters again. I'm not asking for a relationship. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did, and I'm truly sorry. I believe you, I'd said, and I did. Walking out, I'd felt lighter somehow. Not because I'd forgiven her, I hadn't, not fully, but because I'd heard her take real responsibility without making excuses. Daniel had joined me on the sidewalk. How do you feel? Tired. But okay. I think that needed to happen. Do you think you'll have a relationship with her again someday? I don't know. Maybe. But not now. Not for a long time. The wedding had been small and perfect. 50 people in a garden in upstate New York, with string lights and wildflowers and vows we'd written ourselves. My parents had come, though they'd seemed uncomfortable throughout the ceremony. Vanessa, of course, had not been invited. During the reception, my mother had approached me while I was standing alone for a moment. You look beautiful, she'd said. I'm glad you're happy. Thank you for coming. I know things have been difficult. They have. But you're my daughter, and I wanted to be here for your wedding. She'd paused. I've been thinking a lot about what happened with Vanessa, about how your father and I handled it. Okay, I'd said, not sure where this was going. We were wrong to make you feel like the villain. What Vanessa did was serious, and you had every right to protect yourself. I think we didn't want to believe our daughter was capable of such betrayal. It was easier to blame you for being harsh than to accept what she'd done. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd gotten from my mother. Thank you for saying that. I miss having both my daughters in my life, she'd admitted. But I understand why you can't forgive her yet. Maybe someday, but not now. Maybe someday? I'd agreed. The wedding had marked a turning point, not just in my relationship with Daniel, but in my relationship with myself. I'd spent a year being defined by what had been stolen from me. Now I was ready to move forward, to create new work, to build a life that had nothing to do with Vanessa's theft. 6 months after the wedding, Daniel and I had bought a house in Brooklyn. A real house with a yard and a studio space where I could work without worrying about theft or betrayal. I'd started a new series of paintings, completely different from anything I'd done before. These were about resilience, about rebuilding, about the strength that comes from surviving betrayal. One piece was called Reclaimed Identity. It showed a woman's face emerging from fragments and chaos, becoming whole again. It was about me, about finding myself again after having my identity stolen. The piece had been selected for a group show at MoMA. When I'd gotten the news, I'd cried. Not sad tears, but tears of vindication. I'd made it, on my own merit, with my own work, with no one stealing credit. Around the same time, I'd heard through my mother that Vanessa had enrolled in community college. She was studying business administration, something completely unrelated to art. She says she's done with art, my mother had told me. She doesn't want to be reminded of what she did. Good. The art world was better off without her anyway. 2 years after the scandal, I'd received an unexpected letter. Not from Vanessa, but from the gallery owner who'd hosted her fraudulent show. Dear Ms. Pierce, my name is Caroline West, and I owned the gallery where your sister displayed stolen artwork 2 years ago. I'm writing to apologise. At the time, I was horrified to learn that I'd been complicit, however unknowingly, in presenting stolen work. I closed the gallery shortly after the scandal because I felt I'd failed as a curator by not vetting the work more thoroughly. I've since opened a new space, and I would like to offer you a solo show. Not as an apology, though I do still feel terrible about what happened, but because I genuinely admire your work and believe it deserves to be shown properly, without the taint of theft. If you're interested, please contact me. If not, I understand completely. Sincerely, Caroline West. I'd been surprised by the letter, surprised and touched. Carolyn hadn't been responsible for Vanessa's theft, but she'd felt guilty anyway. I'd called her the next day. I'd be interested in a show. But I need to know. You've really vetted my work this time. You're sure it's actually mine? She'd laughed. I verified every piece 6 ways. Checked timestamps. Talked to collectors who bought your previous work. Reviewed your portfolio history. I'm absolutely certain. The show had been scheduled for 6 months later. It would be my first major solo exhibition, and it would feature entirely new work. Pieces created after the theft, pieces about recovery and identity and strength. I'd invited Daniel, of course, and several close friends. I'd invited my parents, though I wasn't sure they'd come. And I'd debated for a long time whether to invite Vanessa. She doesn't deserve to be there, Daniel had said when I mentioned it. This is your triumph. Why would you want her there? I don't know. Maybe to show her what real success looks like. Maybe to prove that I've moved beyond what she did. Or maybe, Daniel had suggested gently, because part of you wants to forgive her. I'd thought about that. Did I want to forgive Vanessa, after everything she'd done? The night before the show, I'd made a decision. I'd sent Vanessa an email. Vanessa, I'm having a gallery show tomorrow night. I'm not inviting you to come. That wouldn't be appropriate. But I wanted you to know that I'm doing well, that what you did didn't destroy me, that I've built a career on my own work, my own merit, my own talent. I also wanted to tell you that I don't think about you much anymore. For a long time, you were the center of my thoughts, the betrayal, the anger, the hurt, but I've moved past that. You're not the protagonist of my story anymore. You're barely a footnote. I'm not saying this to be cruel. I'm saying it because I think you need to know that what you did, while it hurt me, didn't define me. I defined myself, and I'm stronger now than I was before. I hope you're building a real life for yourself. I hope you've found some peace, and I hope you never steal from anyone again. Natalie, I'd sent it without expecting a response, but the next morning I'd found one waiting. Natalie, thank you for that email. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I appreciate it. I'm glad you're doing well. You always deserved success, and I'm glad you achieved it without me dragging you down. I'm doing okay. Not great, but okay. I'm working, going to school, paying off the restitution slowly. I'm building a life that's mine and not stolen from someone else. It's hard and boring and nothing like I imagined my life would be, but it's honest. I hope your show is amazing. I hope people recognize your talent and your strength. And I hope someday you can think of me without anger. Reading her email, I'd felt something unexpected. Peace. Not forgiveness exactly, but the peace that comes from knowing that the other person has genuinely changed. The gallery opening had been magical. Caroline had done an incredible job with the space, lighting each piece perfectly, creating a flow that told the story of my journey. The centerpiece was reclaimed identity, the painting of a woman emerging from chaos. It hung in the main room, illuminated by a spotlight, commanding attention. Collectors and critics had filled the gallery, praising the work, asking about my process, expressing admiration for my strength in the face of adversity. "These pieces have such power," one critic had said. "The emotional authenticity is undeniable. You've taken a traumatic experience and transformed it into art that speaks to universal experiences of betrayal and recovery." That was what I'd wanted. Not just revenge, not just vindication, but transformation. To take what had been stolen and create something even better. Midway through the evening, my parents had arrived. They'd walked through the gallery quietly, looking at each piece, reading the descriptions. When they reached reclaimed identity, my mother had started crying. "This is beautiful," she'd said. "All of it. I'm so proud of you." "Thank you for coming," I'd said. "We almost didn't," my father had admitted. "We weren't sure if we'd be welcome. But your mother insisted." "You're always welcome," I'd said. "You're my parents. I just needed you to understand that what Vanessa did was serious, and I had every right to protect myself." "We do understand," my father had said. "It took us a long time, but we do now." "Your mother was right. What Vanessa did was unforgivable, and you handled it exactly as you should have. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was progress." Later that evening, after most guests had left, Daniel and I had stood together in front of reclaimed identity. "You did it," he'd said, putting his arm around me. "You took the worst betrayal and turned it into your greatest success." "I did," I'd agreed. "But it wasn't easy. The best things never are." That night, driving home, I'd thought about the journey. 2 years ago, I'd been standing in a gallery watching Vanessa accept praise for my stolen work, feeling hurt and betrayed but hiding it behind a calm exterior. Now I'd had my own show featuring my own work, earning my own praise. I'd reclaimed not just my art, but my identity, my confidence, my future. Vanessa had tried to steal my life. Instead, she'd forced me to build an even better one. 3 years after the scandal, Daniel and I had welcomed our first child, a daughter we named Claire. Holding her in the hospital, looking at her tiny, perfect face, I'd thought about identity and legacy and what we pass down to our children. "I want her to be strong," I'd said to Daniel. "I want her to know her own worth, to protect herself, to never let anyone steal who she is." "She'll learn that from you," he'd said, "by watching how you handled everything with Vanessa, how you protected yourself, and came out stronger." When Claire was 2 months old, Vanessa had sent a gift, a handmade baby blanket with Claire's name embroidered on it, along with a note, "Congratulations on your beautiful daughter. I'm not asking to be part of her life. I know I don't have that right. But I wanted to send something to acknowledge this happy moment. I'm genuinely happy for you." I'd kept the blanket. It was beautiful, clearly made with care and attention. But I'd put it away in a closet, not quite ready to use something from Vanessa. My mother had started asking, occasionally, if I might consider letting Vanessa meet Claire. "She's her aunt," my mother had said. "And she's changed so much." She really has. "Maybe someday," I'd said, but not yet. The truth was, I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready for that. Some betrayals were too deep, too fundamental. Vanessa had stolen my identity. How could I trust her around my daughter? But as Claire grew, as I watched her develop her own personality and identity, I'd started thinking about forgiveness differently. Not as something Vanessa deserved, but as something I might need for my own peace. Dr. Phillips, a therapist I'd started seeing after Claire was born, had helped me work through this. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," she'd said. "It doesn't mean letting her back into your life fully. It just means releasing the anger that's still taking up space in your mind." "I don't think about her much anymore," I'd said. "But when you do think about her, what do you feel?" I'd considered this honestly. Anger, resentment, a sense that she got off too easy. Even though she lost her art career, has a criminal record, and spent 2 years paying back restitution. Even though all that. So what would feel like enough? What would make you feel that justice had been fully served? I'd thought about this for a long time. The truth was, nothing would feel like enough. Because what Vanessa had stolen wasn't just money or artwork, it was trust, safety, the belief that family meant something. Those things couldn't be repaid. But maybe, Dr. Phillips had suggested, I could let go of needing them to be repaid. Maybe I could accept that Vanessa had damaged something that couldn't be fixed and choose to move forward anyway. It was a radical idea, accepting imperfect justice. On Claire's first birthday, we'd had a small party at our house, just family and close friends, nothing elaborate. My parents had come, bringing gifts and taking dozens of photos. They'd become devoted grandparents, making up for the emotional distance of the previous years. As we'd cut the cake, my mother had approached me quietly. Vanessa asked if she could send a gift for Claire, she'd said. I told her I'd ask you first. What kind of gift? I don't know, she didn't say. But she's been doing well, Natalie. She finished her degree, got a real job in business operations. She's been making her restitution payments on time. She's stable. I'd looked at Claire, smashing cake into her face with pure joy, and thought about what kind of world I wanted her to grow up in. A world where people could change, where mistakes, even terrible ones, could be overcome, where families could heal, or a world where betrayal meant permanent exile, where forgiveness was impossible, where family bonds could be shattered beyond repair. She can send a gift, I'd said, but I'm not ready for more than that. That's fair, my mother had said. The gift had arrived a week later, a savings bond in Claire's name worth $1,000. The note read simply, for her future. Aunt Vanessa, it was thoughtful, appropriate, not trying to buy forgiveness or force a relationship, just acknowledging Claire's existence and contributing to her future. I'd put the bond in Claire's file along with the other financial documents for her college fund. That evening, I'd written Vanessa an email. Vanessa, thank you for the savings bond for Claire. It was a thoughtful gift. I want you to know that I'm doing well. My career is thriving. My marriage is strong. My daughter is healthy and happy. The identity you tried to steal has grown into something bigger and better than it was before. I also want you to know that I'm working on forgiving you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Carrying anger forever is exhausting, and I'm tired of giving you space in my mind. This doesn't mean we're going to have a close relationship. It doesn't mean I trust you or that you'll be part of Claire's life in any significant way. It just means I'm letting go of the need for you to suffer more than you already have. You stole my identity and you paid for it. Your career is gone. Your reputation is destroyed. You have a criminal record that will follow you forever. That's enough. I hope you continue building an honest life. I hope you find peace with who you are. And I hope you never steal from anyone again. I'm moving forward and I'm not looking back. Natalie, I'd sent it and felt a weight lift. Not forgiveness exactly, but release. The story had ended not with dramatic reconciliation or continued warfare, but with quiet acceptance. Vanessa had stolen my identity. I'd made her pay for it, and now we were both building new lives in the aftermath. Some betrayals don't get neat endings. Some family relationships can't be fully repaired. Some wounds leave permanent scars. But that was okay, because the scars were proof that I'd survived. And survival, I'd learned, was its own kind of victory. 5 years after the scandal, I'd achieved something I'd never imagined, a retrospective at a major museum. The exhibition was called Identity, From Theft to Reclamation, and featured my work from before the scandal, during the recovery period, and my current pieces. It told the story of betrayal and resilience through art. The museum had wanted to include the pieces Vanessa had stolen and displayed, showing them alongside the documentation of the theft, a way to make the scandal itself part of the art narrative. I'd agreed, but only on certain terms. The wall text would clearly explain that these pieces were created by me, stolen by Vanessa, and displayed fraudulently. Her name would appear only as the thief, never as the artist. The exhibition had drawn huge crowds. People were fascinated by the story. The sister who stole another sister's identity, the patient revenge, the public exposure, the rebuilding. But what really resonated was the art itself. The progression from my early work to the pieces I'd created after the theft showed not just technical skill, but emotional growth. You could see in brushstrokes and colour choices how I'd processed trauma and transformed it into beauty. The centrepiece of the exhibition was a new work I'd created specifically for the show. It was called Unrecognisable, and it depicted two sisters, one whole and vibrant, the other a faded, distorted copy. The title was a reference to my story's name. My sister used my identity. Now she's unrecognisable. Because Vanessa wasn't just unrecognisable as an artist after the scandal, she was unrecognisable as a person. The woman who'd stolen from me bore little resemblance to the sister I'd grown up with. Or maybe she did, and I'd just never seen her clearly before. At the opening reception, a journalist had asked me, "Do you think your sister will come see this exhibition?" "I have no idea," I'd said. "But she's welcome to if she wants. Would you want to see her reaction?" No. This exhibition isn't about her. It's about me, about taking back my identity and my story. She's just the catalyst that forced me to become stronger. That quote had ended up in several articles about the show. It captured what I'd learned, that revenge was most satisfying when it led to personal growth rather than just punishment. 2 weeks after the exhibition opened, I'd received an email from Vanessa. "Natalie, I saw the exhibition. I wasn't planning to. I thought it would be too painful. But curiosity got the better of me. You were right in your piece, unrecognisable. I barely recognise myself from 5 years ago. That person who stole from you, who justified theft and betrayal with jealousy. I genuinely don't understand her anymore. The exhibition is beautiful. Not just the art, but the story it tells. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something meaningful. I don't know if I could have done that. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. I just wanted you to know that I saw what you created, and I'm in awe of your strength. I'm doing well, in case you're curious. I have a boring corporate job that I'm actually good at. I'm dating someone nice who knows about my past and doesn't judge me for it. I'm paying off the last of the restitution, should be done in another 6 months. I'm building a life that's mine, like you told me to. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. Thank you for showing me, however harshly, that shortcuts don't work and stolen success is hollow. I needed to learn that lesson, even though it destroyed my life to learn it. I hope you and Daniel and Claire are happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world." I'd read the email twice, then filed it away. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The exhibition had run for 6 months, drawing over 100,000 visitors. It had cemented my reputation as a major artist, led to more commissions and opportunities than I could accept, and told my story on my own terms. That was the real victory. Not just that Vanessa faced consequences, but that I'd turned the betrayal into art, into meaning, into a legacy that had nothing to do with her theft. 7 years after the scandal, my mother had called with unexpected news. "Vanessa is engaged," she'd said, "to a man named Christopher. He's an accountant. They've been dating for 2 years. That's good," I'd said, and meant it. "I hope she's happy." "She wanted me to tell you. She didn't want you to hear from someone else and think she was hiding it. I appreciate that. She also wanted me to tell you that she's finished paying the restitution. Every penny, plus interest. She wanted you to know." The restitution had been $62,000. Over 7 years, Vanessa had paid it all back, plus accumulated interest. It had taken every extra dollar she'd earned, every tax refund, every bonus. "Good," I'd said. "That's what she owed. Natalie, I know you're not ready to have a relationship with her, but would you be willing to meet with her one more time? She wants to give you something." "What?" "I don't know. She just said she has something that belongs to you, something she needs to return in person." I'd been curious despite myself. All right, I'll meet with her. We'd arranged to meet at the same coffee shop where we'd had our first post-trial conversation. Daniel had offered to come, but I'd gone alone. Vanessa had arrived on time, looking healthy and professional in business casual clothes. She'd gained some weight back. Her hair was styled. She looked like someone who had their life together. "Thank you for meeting me," she'd said. "I know you don't owe me any more of your time. Mom said you have something for me?" She'd pulled an envelope from her bag. "This is the final restitution payment, the last check, plus a little extra to cover interest. I wanted to give it to you in person. I'd taken the check. $62,000 had been repaid over 7 years. This final payment closed the financial debt. Thank you," I'd said. "There's something else." She'd pulled out another envelope, this one sealed. "This is a letter. You don't have to read it now, or ever if you don't want to. But I wrote it because I needed to say some things that I never got to say before." "What kind of things?" "Mostly just acknowledging how much I hurt you. Acknowledging that no amount of restitution can repay what I stole. And thanking you, strangely enough. Thanking me. For destroying my life so completely that I had no choice but to rebuild it, honestly. If you'd just confronted me privately, if you'd given me an easy out, I would have kept stealing, from you or someone else. But you made the consequences so severe that I had to face what I'd done." "I didn't do it to help you," I'd said. "I know. You did it to protect yourself, but it helped me anyway." We'd talked for another hour, not about reconciliation, but about where we'd both ended up. Vanessa had told me about Christopher, about her corporate job, about the life she'd built that had nothing to do with art or theft. "I don't make art anymore," she'd said. "I can't even look at a blank canvas without feeling shame. But that's okay. I've accepted that art wasn't meant to be my path." "What is your path?" "Something boring and honest. I'm an operations manager at a mid-sized company. I organize things, improve processes, solve problems. It's not glamorous, but I'm good at it. And more importantly, it's actually mine. Nothing stolen, nothing borrowed. Just me doing work I earned through my own effort." As we'd prepared to leave, she'd said, "I'm getting married in 6 months. I'm not inviting you. That would be inappropriate, but I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know that I'm building a real life with someone who knows about my past and loves me anyway." "I'm glad," I'd said. And I was. Walking out of the coffee shop, I'd felt something unexpected. Forgiveness. Real forgiveness. Not just the intellectual decision to let go of anger, but genuine feeling of peace about what had happened. Vanessa had stolen my identity, and I'd made her pay for it in every possible way. Legally, financially, professionally, socially. She'd lost everything. Her art career, her reputation, her relationship with me. But she'd gained something too, the chance to become someone real, someone honest, someone who earned her own life instead of stealing someone else's. And I'd gained my own gifts from the ordeal. Strength, clarity, the knowledge that I could survive betrayal, and not just survive, but thrive. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was justice. At home that evening, I'd opened Vanessa's letter. It was handwritten, several pages long, careful and thoughtful. "Dear Natalie, by the time you read this, you'll know that I've paid back every dollar I stole from you. 7 years of payments, every spare dollar going toward the debt I owed. I wish I could say that paying the money back makes us even, but we both know that's not true. Money can be repaid. Trust cannot. Identity cannot. The years you spent looking over your shoulder wondering if I'd stolen other things, questioning your own judgment, those can't be given back. What I stole from you wasn't just artwork or credit card numbers. I stole your sense of safety, your ability to trust family, your peace of mind. And no amount of restitution can repay that. I want to tell you that I understand now what I really did. I didn't just commit fraud or theft. I tried to erase you, to become you. To take your identity and make it mine because I didn't have the courage or talent to build my own. You were everything I wanted to be, talented, successful, loved, respected. And instead of working to become those things myself, I tried to steal them from you. That's not just criminal. It's a fundamental rejection of who I was supposed to be. The past 7 years have been about figuring out who Vanessa Pierce actually is when she's not comparing herself to Natalie Pierce. And the answer surprised me. I'm someone competent and organised, someone good at solving problems and managing projects, someone better suited to business than art. I found this identity not through theft, but through the consequences you gave me. The criminal record meant I couldn't get creative jobs. The destroyed reputation meant I couldn't work in art. The financial burden meant I had to take whatever work I could find. And in that work, boring office jobs, corporate projects, process improvements, I found something I was actually good at, something that was mine. So I need to thank you, even though you'll probably find that strange. Thank you for destroying my life so completely that I had to build a new one. Thank you for not letting me get away with theft. Thank you for forcing me to face consequences instead of running away. I'm getting married in 6 months to a man who knows everything about what I did to you. I told him on our 3rd date because I needed him to know who I'd been. And he said something that changed how I saw myself. You're not that person anymore. You paid for what you did. You've spent 7 years becoming someone better. That's who I want to be with. I hope someday you can see me that way too. Not as the person who stole from you, but as the person who learned from it and changed. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm not asking to be invited to family events or to meet Claire. I understand that some damage is too deep to repair. I'm just asking you to know that what you did worked. The revenge, the justice, the consequences. They worked. They forced me to become someone better. You took back your identity by destroying mine. And in doing so, you gave me the chance to build a real identity for the first time. I'll always be sorry for what I did, but I'm grateful for what you did in response. With love and regret, Vanessa. I'd read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Not sad tears, but the complicated tears that come with closure and recognition and the end of a long, painful chapter. I'd shown the letter to Daniel. What do you think? I think she's genuinely changed, he'd said. And I think you can forgive her without having her back in your life. The 2 things aren't mutually exclusive. He was right. Forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It just meant releasing the anger, accepting that justice had been served and moving forward. That night, I'd written back, Vanessa, I received your letter and your final restitution payment. Both are accepted. You're right that money can't repay what you stole, but the consequences you've faced, the criminal record, the destroyed reputation, the 7 years of payments, the lost career, those constitute justice. Not perfect justice, but enough. I'm glad you found a life that's yours. I'm glad you found someone who loves you despite your past. I'm glad you've become someone capable of genuine remorse and growth. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. This doesn't mean we'll have a close relationship. I don't think I can ever fully trust you again. But it means I'm letting go of anger and resentment. I'm choosing to believe that you've changed, and I'm moving forward without carrying the weight of hatred. I hope your marriage is happy. I hope your life continues to be honest and fulfilling. And I hope you never forget the lessons you learned from all of this. Be well, Natalie? I'd sent it and felt the final piece of the burden lift. The revenge was complete. The justice was served. The story was over. Now I could truly move forward, carrying scars but not wounds, carrying lessons but not bitterness, carrying forgiveness but not naivety. 10 years after the scandal, I'd been invited to give a TED Talk about identity, theft, and reclamation. Standing on that stage, looking out at thousands of faces, I'd told my story publicly for the first time. 10 years ago, my sister stole my identity. I'd begun. She stole my artwork, my credit cards, my documents, and tried to become me. She wanted my success, my life, my identity. When I discovered the theft, I had a choice. I could confront her privately, try to handle it quietly within the family. Or I could expose her publicly, make her face legal consequences, destroy her reputation. I chose the second option, and I spent years wondering if I'd been too harsh, too vindictive, too cruel. But here's what I learned. Real justice sometimes looks harsh. Protecting yourself sometimes means destroying someone else's plans. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the full consequences of their actions. My sister's life was destroyed by those consequences. Her art career ended before it really began. She got a criminal record. She spent 7 years paying back financial restitution. She lost friends, opportunities, and the identity she'd tried to steal. But she also gained something: the chance to become a real person with a real identity. The chance to build something honest instead of something stolen. And I gained something too: my identity back. Stronger, clearer, more protected. I learned that identity isn't just what you create. It's how you defend it when someone tries to take it. Today, my sister is married, working an honest job, living a life that's truly hers. We're not close, but we're at peace. And that's enough. So if you're facing betrayal, if someone has stolen something precious from you, remember this: protection isn't cruel. Justice isn't revenge. And sometimes destroying someone's facade is the kindest thing you can do, because it forces them to find their real face. The talk had gone viral, watched millions of times. I'd gotten thousands of messages from people who'd experienced similar betrayals, who'd been stolen from by family or friends, who'd struggled with whether to pursue justice or let it go. To all of them, I'd said the same thing: protect yourself first, pursue justice second, and never apologize for defending what's yours. That was the lesson Vanessa had taught me, however unintentionally. That identity was precious, that protection was necessary, that sometimes the people closest to you were the ones most capable of stealing your life. Now, 15 years after the scandal, I sat in my art studio looking at a new piece I was creating. It was called Sisters, and it depicted 2 women, one in vibrant colour, one in faded grayscale, standing back to back, looking in different directions. It was about Vanessa and me, about how we'd started as sisters but had become strangers, about how she'd tried to steal my identity and ended up losing her own, about how betrayal had forced us both to become different people than we'd been before. My phone rang. My mother. "Vanessa had a baby," she said, her voice happy and emotional. "A little boy. She named him Thomas after your father." "That's wonderful," I said, and meant it. "How is she?" "Good. Tired, but good. Christopher is apparently a very hands-on father. They seem happy." "I'm glad." She wanted me to ask if you'd like to see pictures. She understands if you don't, but... "Yes," I said, surprising myself. "I'd like to see pictures." My mother sent them a few hours later. Photos of a tiny baby boy with dark hair, wrapped in a blue blanket. Photos of Vanessa holding him, looking exhausted, but radiantly happy. Photos of Christopher looking at his son with obvious love. It was a real family, an honest family, built on truth instead of theft. I showed the photos to Daniel, now my husband of 15 years. "Should we send a gift?" "If you want to," he said. "It's your choice." I thought about it, about identity and family and the long journey from betrayal to peace, about how Vanessa had tried to steal my life and ended up building her own, about how I'd taken my identity back and created something even better. "Yes," I said. "Let's send a gift." We sent a savings bond, just like Vanessa had sent for Claire years ago. An investment in the future, a recognition that life goes on, that people change, that families can heal even if they can never fully return to what they were. The note I included was simple: "Congratulations on your son. May he grow up knowing who he is and protecting what's his." Aunt Natalie that evening, working in my studio, I finished Sisters. 2 women, back to back, looking in different directions. Once they'd been moving together. Then one had betrayed the other. Now they moved in parallel, separate but existing in the same world. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was peace. And sometimes peace is the best revenge of all.